In a distant galaxy where humans are newcomers, an orphaned alien girl named Zephyra struggles to survive in a society that marginalizes her. The planet, Valtoria, is a melting pot of various species, yet deeply rooted prejudices and systemic inequalities create a harsh environment for those without power or connections. The story follows Captain Jaxon Hayes, a decorated human officer with a reputation for fairness and bravery, who becomes an unlikely hero for Zephyra. Through their journey, they challenge the oppressive norms, uncover hidden truths, and forge a bond that transcends species and societal barriers. As they navigate political intrigue and physical dangers, Jaxon and Zephyra inspire a movement that brings hope and change to Valtoria. And so, the story begins. The bustling market district of Valtoria was a labyrinth of vibrant stalls, exotic goods, and diverse species. Zephyra navigated through the throngs of people with practiced ease, her small frame darting between towering aliens and humans alike. The air was thick with the smell of alien spices and a metallic tang that clung to everything. She kept her eyes peeled for the authorities, always alert for the slightest sign of trouble. As she reached for a discarded piece of fruit, a sharp voice cut through the cacophony of bartering and conversation. "Thief." Stop her! Zephyra's heart sank. She hadn't stolen anything, but in Valtoria, an orphaned alien girl was always guilty until proven innocent. She turned to see a burly merchant pointing an accusatory finger at her, a crowd beginning to gather. Before she could react, a strong hand grabbed her arm, and she was yanked forward. "What's the meaning of this?" demanded a commanding voice. Zephyra looked up to see a tall human man, his uniform marking him as someone important. His eyes were stern, yet there was a glimmer of compassion in them. "She's a thief. She stole from me," the merchant accused. The human turned to Zephyra. "Is this true?" he asked. Zephyra shook her head vigorously. "I didn't steal anything. I was just picking up what was already on the ground." The man released her arm and addressed the crowd. "Is there anyone here who actually saw her steal?" The crowd murmured but offered no definitive answers. The merchant, now uncertain, lowered his hand. "Without any witnesses, you have no grounds to accuse her," the man stated firmly. The crowd began to disperse, and the merchant, grumbling, returned to his stall. The human officer knelt down to Zephyra's level. "Are you all right?" Zephyra nodded, her eyes wide with a mix of fear and gratitude. "Thank you," she whispered. "What's your name?" he asked. "Zephyra," she replied. "I'm Captain Jaxon Hayes," he introduced himself, extending a hand. "Let's get you something to eat." As they walked through the market, the crowd's reaction lingered in Jaxon's mind. The deep-seated prejudices against orphans and aliens were palpable. He learned that Zephyra had been living on the streets since her parents disappeared, scraping by however she could. As they shared a meal, Jaxon's innate sense of justice flared. He couldn't turn a blind eye to the injustices he witnessed. "I want to help you, Zephyra," he said. "But I need you to trust me." Zephyra hesitated, her past experiences making her wary of trust. "Why are you helping me? No one else ever has." "Everyone deserves a chance, especially those whom society has forgotten," Jaxon replied. Their conversation was interrupted by a figure emerging from the shadows, cloaked in a long, dark robe. "Tread carefully, human. Not all battles can be won," the figure warned before disappearing back into the crowd. Zephyra led Jaxon through the hidden parts of Valtoria, revealing the darker side of the city. The vibrant market gave way to dim alleys and crumbling buildings, home to those marginalized by society. Jaxon's resolve to help grew stronger. He knew he was stepping into a complex web of social injustice and political intrigue, but he couldn't walk away. As they returned to the more populated areas, Jaxon felt a sense of purpose. He didn't know what challenges lay ahead, but he was determined to fight for justice and protect Zephyra. The foundation of their alliance was set, and together they would face whatever dangers awaited them. Zephyra guided Jaxon to an inconspicuous building at the edge of the market district. It appeared abandoned, but a hidden entrance led them to an underground refuge. The air was damp and musty, the flickering lights casting eerie shadows on the cold, hard surfaces of the makeshift shelter. "Welcome to our home," Zephyra said, gesturing to the gathered orphans and outcasts. The refuge was a labyrinth of narrow passages and small rooms, each filled with those society had cast aside. Among them was Kalen, the leader of the reformist group. Kalen, a tall, imposing figure with a stern expression, approached them. "You're risking more than you know, human. But we need allies," he said, extending a hand to Jaxon. Jaxon shook it firmly. "I didn't come here to stand by and watch injustice," he replied. Kalen explained the oppressive laws targeting non-native species and the ongoing efforts to fight against them. Jaxon listened intently, his commitment to their cause growing stronger. However, their discussion was cut short by the sound of approaching footsteps and the distant hum of enforcers. "Raid!" someone shouted. Panic erupted as everyone scrambled to escape. Jaxon grabbed Zephyra's hand, and they fled through the labyrinthine tunnels. The cold, hard surfaces of the underground walls flashed by as they ran, the distant sounds of pursuit echoing ominously. They found temporary shelter in an abandoned warehouse, where Jaxon contacted his human allies for assistance. As they caught their breath, Zephyra opened up about her parents' mysterious disappearance. "They were taken," she said, her voice trembling. "I need to know why." Jaxon placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "We'll find out together," he promised. Their search led them to an old, dusty room filled with forgotten documents. Among the papers, they discovered evidence hinting at a wider conspiracy against orphans and marginalized aliens. Jaxon's resolve hardened. He made a pledge to protect Zephyra and uncover the truth, no matter the cost. As they sifted through the documents, their bond grew stronger. Zephyra began to see Jaxon not just as a protector, but as a friend. Jaxon, in turn, felt a deepening sense of responsibility towards her. Suddenly, the sound of boots echoed through the warehouse. "They've found us," Jaxon whispered urgently. They gathered the documents and prepared to flee once more. The immediate danger from the local enforcers loomed large, but their resolve was unshaken. They narrowly escaped the raid, slipping through the shadows and disappearing into the night. Their resolve was stronger than ever, and they knew the path ahead would be fraught with danger. But together they would face it head-on. Jaxon and Zephyra followed the clues they had uncovered to an old, nondescript building in the heart of Valtoria. It looked abandoned, but a concealed panel near the entrance revealed a hidden passage leading to an underground archive. The air grew cooler and more sterile as they descended, the hum of machinery becoming more pronounced. They reached a large, dimly lit room filled with rows of holographic records. Jaxon activated a terminal, and Zephyra helped him search through the archives. After hours of combing through data, they found a series of records detailing numerous disappearances, including that of Zephyra's parents. A hidden door behind a stack of old equipment led them to a secret laboratory. The clinical smell of antiseptic filled the air, and the cold, metallic surfaces of the lab equipment glinted under harsh lights. Zephyra's eyes widened as they found evidence of horrific experiments conducted on orphans and marginalized aliens. Their discovery was interrupted by the sound of approaching security drones. "We've been found," Jaxon muttered, grabbing Zephyra's hand. They sprinted through the corridors, the flicker of holographic displays casting eerie shadows as distant alarms began to sound. The taste of fear and adrenaline surged in their mouths as they narrowly escaped through a ventilation shaft. Breathing heavily, they emerged in a secluded alley. Jaxon contacted his superiors, revealing the conspiracy. "We have to get this information to the public," he said. "It's the only way to stop them." Zephyra nodded, her resolve hardening. "Why did they do this? What did we ever do to them?" she asked, her voice trembling. Jaxon placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Some people fear what they don't understand, but we won't let them get away with this. Thank you, Jaxon, for believing in me." They spent the night in a safe house provided by Jaxon's allies. Zephyra shared personal stories of her parents, and Jaxon found himself growing more protective of her. He felt a moral obligation to see this through, despite the potential fallout of exposing powerful figures. The next morning, they set out to meet Kalen and the reformists. Jaxon's protective instincts were in full gear, and Zephyra began to see him as a father figure. Together, they planned to expose the conspiracy to the public, knowing the dangers that lay ahead. As they prepared for their next move, the bond between them grew stronger, united by a shared goal and an unyielding determination. Jaxon and Zephyra arrived at the reformist group's secret meeting place, a dimly lit room filled with tension and urgency. Kaylin introduced them to influential figures sympathetic to their cause. The murmurs of hushed conversations and heated debates filled the room, and the smell of sweat and anxiety hung in the air. As they discussed their plan to expose the conspiracy, a sudden commotion interrupted the meeting. A sabotage attempt revealed a traitor within the group. The dim lighting cast long shadows as they captured the traitor, who revealed a larger plot against them. Kaylin, his stern expression even more intense, addressed the group. "We need to be careful. There are eyes everywhere." Jaxon nodded. "We've come too far to turn back now. We have to see this through." Zephyra, growing more confident and assertive, added, "I'm ready. Whatever it takes, I'm not afraid anymore." They formed a daring plan to expose the conspiracy during a major public event. Jaxon and Zephyra trained together, the rough texture of the makeshift training equipment becoming familiar. The group faced internal disagreements on the best course of action, but Jaxon's leadership qualities shone through as he guided them with determination. Threats aimed at deterring Jaxon from proceeding only strengthened their resolve. They shared simple meals, the taste of shared bread and water reminding them of their unity and purpose. Zephyra's determination to fight for justice and her future grew stronger with each passing day. As the day of the public event approached, the group's tension and anxiety peaked. They knew the risks involved, but they were united by their goal. They fortified their resolve, ready to face whatever dangers awaited them. On the day of the event, heightened security and tension filled the air. Jaxon and Zephyra, disguised, infiltrated the venue. The bright lights illuminated the grand public square of Voltoria, casting harsh shadows. Kaylin and the reformists set up their equipment to broadcast the evidence. A dramatic confrontation with a high-ranking official revealed deeper layers of the conspiracy. Zephyra faced a personal adversary connected to her past, and the broadcast began, showing the gathered crowd the horrific experiments. The deafening roar of the crowd's mixed reactions filled the square, and the acrid smell of smoke and fear permeated the air. Security forces attempted to shut down the broadcast, but Jaxon and Zephyra fought to protect the equipment. The rough stone beneath their feet provided a solid foundation as they defended their position. The metallic taste of adrenaline fueled their determination. The event ended with the broadcast complete, though at a high cost. Significant casualties marked the day, but they had achieved their goal. The truth was out, and the fight for justice continued. The grand public square of Voltoria was teeming with people, the air buzzing with heightened security and tension. Jaxon and Zephyra, carefully disguised, navigated through the throngs, keeping a low profile. The bright lights illuminated every corner, casting harsh shadows that only added to the sense of foreboding. Kaylin and the reformists were already in position, setting up their equipment to broadcast the evidence they had gathered. The murmurs of the crowd grew louder as the event was about to begin. Jaxon exchanged a reassuring glance with Zephyra. "This is it. We don't back down now." Zephyra nodded, her resolve firm. "I won't let them silence us. Not again." As the event commenced, a high-ranking official took the stage, his presence exuding authority and control. Jaxon and Zephyra slipped into position, ready to activate their broadcast. Suddenly, a figure from Zephyra's past appeared, a personal adversary she had long feared. The confrontation was inevitable. "You think you can change anything?" the official sneered, his voice dripping with disdain. "You're just a thorn in our side." The broadcast began, and the holographic displays showed the gathered crowd the horrific experiments that had been conducted on orphans and marginalized aliens. The crowd's reaction was immediate and visceral, a deafening roar of mixed emotions: anger, horror, disbelief. Chaos erupted as security forces moved to shut down the broadcast. Jaxon and Zephyra fought to protect the equipment, their movements precise and coordinated. The rough stone beneath their feet provided a solid foundation as they defended their position. The acrid smell of smoke and fear permeated the air, and the metallic taste of adrenaline fueled their determination. Zephyra faced her adversary, the memories of her past giving her the strength to stand her ground. "You took everything from me. Now, I'll make sure you pay." The fight was intense, but Jaxon and Zephyra managed to keep the broadcast going. The evidence was out, and the public was watching. As the broadcast concluded, the square was a scene of turmoil. Significant casualties marked the day, but they had achieved their goal. The truth was out, and the fight for justice continued. The aftermath was chaotic, but amidst the confusion, a sense of hope began to emerge. Jaxon, Zephyra, and the reformists knew that this was only the beginning. The public exposure was a significant victory, but there were still many battles to be fought. Valtoria was in turmoil following the broadcast. Protests and riots broke out across the city, public opinion divided. Jaxon, Zephyra, and the reformists regrouped at a safe house, a temporary refuge filled with tension and urgency. The sound of distant protests and clashes filled the air, a constant reminder of the unrest outside. The dim, secure lighting of the safe house cast long shadows, and the smell of makeshift meals and sweat from the refugees hung heavy. They huddled together, their resolve unbroken. Jaxon faced the consequences of his actions, receiving both praise and reprimand from his superiors. The weight of his decisions settled heavily on his shoulders, but his commitment to the cause remained unwavering. Zephyra's newfound fame brought both allies and enemies. She embraced her role as a symbol of hope and change, determined to fight for a better future. Her quest for truth and justice for her parents and others like her fueled her resolve. As they made plans to secure the safety of the reformists and orphans, Zephyra discovered new information about her parents' fate, strengthening her determination. A confrontation with a powerful figure revealed the depth of the conspiracy, adding layers of complexity to their struggle. Jaxon prepared for a final showdown with the remaining conspirators, his resolve hardened by the support of his allies. The group faced internal conflicts, but their shared goal kept them united. "We've come too far to let them win now," Jaxon said, his voice steady and determined. Zephyra nodded, her eyes fierce with resolve. "I need to know what happened to my parents. I won't stop until I find out." Kaylin, ever the leader, rallied the group. "We have to stay strong. They're counting on us." The bitter taste of uncertainty and fear was ever present, but it was tempered by their determination. The group regrouped, preparing for the final confrontation. They knew the risks, but they also knew the stakes. The fight for justice was far from over, and they were ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. As they braced for the final battle, the hints of a deeper conspiracy and the looming threat of martial law only fueled their resolve. They would not be deterred. The city of Valtoria was on the brink of change, and they were determined to see it through. The heavily fortified headquarters of the remaining conspirators loomed before Jaxon and his team. Dimly lit corridors echoed with the sound of their footsteps, creating an eerie atmosphere. The metallic smell of blood and sweat filled the air, mingling with the rough, cold surfaces of the industrial setting. Jaxon led the way, his resolve steely as he prepared to end the conspiracy once and for all. Zephyra stayed close, her heart pounding with a mix of fear and determination. She needed answers about her parents, and she was ready to face whatever awaited her. As they infiltrated the headquarters, they encountered heavy resistance. Security forces engaged them, and a fierce battle ensued. Jaxon's tactical skills came to the forefront, guiding the team through the chaos. Zephyra spotted the leader of the conspirators, a figure she recognized from her past. Anger surged through her veins as she confronted him. "You took everything from me. Now, I'll make sure you pay." The leader sneered, unfazed. "You think you've won? This is only the beginning." A climactic battle unfolded, with high stakes and personal sacrifices. Jaxon faced off against the main antagonist, revealing deeper layers of the conspiracy. As the fight intensified, the alarms blared, signaling the imminent explosion set by the conspirators as a last-ditch effort to cover their tracks. Amidst the chaos, Zephyra learned the truth about her parents. They had been part of a resistance group, fighting against the very conspiracy that had torn their family apart. The revelation fueled her resolve, and with Jaxon's help, they managed to expose the remaining conspirators to the public. The headquarters was set to explode, and they had to escape quickly. The taste of dust and adrenaline filled their mouths as they fought their way out. They narrowly escaped, with significant casualties marking the end of the battle. Despite the losses, they had achieved their goal. The conspirators were exposed, and the headquarters was destroyed. As the dust settled, Jaxon and Zephyra stood together, the weight of their victory heavy on their shoulders. The fight for justice had been arduous, but they had prevailed. Now, it was time to rebuild and heal from the trauma of the past. Valtoria began to rebuild in the aftermath of the conspiracy's fall. The city, once shrouded in corruption and fear, was now a place of hope and renewal. Jaxon and Zephyra were hailed as heroes, though they mourned the losses they had endured. The reformist group gained political influence, pushing for significant changes to ensure such atrocities would never happen again. The scent of fresh construction and renewal filled the air as the city came to life. The sounds of rebuilding and new beginnings echoed through the streets. Zephyra was offered a leadership role among the orphans and marginalized aliens, a testament to her courage and resilience. She accepted, ready to lead and protect her community. Jaxon faced decisions about his future and his place on Valtoria. He had found a sense of fulfillment in the fight for justice, but the weight of his decisions lingered. A ceremony was held to honor the fallen and celebrate their victory, the warmth of the sun on their faces a reminder of the brighter days ahead. The rough texture of memorial plaques honored those who had sacrificed for the greater good. During the ceremony, Jaxon received a message from his superiors, offering a new mission. He pondered his next steps, the taste of victory and the bittersweet tang of loss fresh in his mind. Zephyra approached him, their bond stronger than ever. "I couldn't have done this without you." "Thank you," she said, her voice filled with gratitude. Jaxon smiled, his resolve renewed. "We've come a long way, but there's still work to be done," he replied. Kaylin, standing beside them, nodded in agreement. "This is just the beginning. We have to keep fighting for a better future." As they looked out over the recovering city, they knew that the fight for justice was far from over. The theme of hope and rebuilding after tragedy resonated deeply within them. They had brought about significant change, but the journey ahead was still fraught with challenges. Together, they would face whatever came next, determined to build a brighter future for Valtoria.